Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this validation group call. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through some virtual housekeeping, and then we can get started. What I'm going to do real quick is, so if this is your first time being on this call, I'm going to send you a message on the right-hand side of your screen, and if you could, if you have a question, you could either send it directly to me, you could send it to everybody, but this is how we're going to communicate back and forth, just because there's almost 10 people on the call right now, and I want to make sure that we ask all the questions that get asked, and we get all of your questions answered. So without further ado, I want to introduce Rob Dowda. Rob owns SpeedPro Direct in Birmingham, Alabama, and listen, for everybody on this call, I'm really excited myself, personally. Rob started his studio. Well, you know what, Rob, I'm going to let you tell the story. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Rob.
So, hello, everybody, wherever you are in the country. I'm on Central Time, Birmingham, Alabama. I wrote the first check, I guess, was October of 18 and opened officially May of 19. And so, yeah, that's kind of when I started this. And then Steve, I don't know if you want to kind of do the questions, or you want me to just go tell the story of how I opened this, or how do you want to do this?
You know, Rob, let's just take a step back. Talk to us about what Rob was doing prior to writing that first check. And so talk to us a little bit about what you were doing previous to SpeedPro, and then we'll go into the other aspects of the questions.
Okay, so I was in the corporate world for most of my career, sales management positions. The last 12 or so years before I bought this business, I was in medical device. I was actually a vice president, regional manager in medical device. And I was getting into my 50s and getting extremely tired of dealing with orthopedic and neurosurgeons, hospitals. That whole world was kind of taking its toll, let's just say. And so I hired a consultant. I looked at a wide variety of companies. And quite frankly, I was interested in kind of the franchise model, and was very surprised, probably like most of you guys on the call, how many things out there are actually franchises. I had no idea until I started looking. So my consultant finally brought me this printing business, and I was like, immediately, I was like, what the hell are you talking about, printing? That's all gone to the internet. There's no way I'm getting into the printing business. And so I started looking into it more and traveled around a little bit to some other Speed Pros, and quite frankly, just fell in love with the applications. I had no idea how any of this was done. I didn't, obviously didn't come from this world, and just fell in love with the creative aspect of this and all the plethora of applications that people were doing. So that's how this came to fruition.
All right. So Rob, talk to us a little bit about, when you were talking about applications or talking about projects, but what maybe intrigued you about the industry versus all the other industries that you were looking at? Because I'm looking at the list right now, and I think every single candidate on this call is working with a franchise consultant, broker, franchise coach like you were. So what maybe intrigued you about the industry versus all the other industries that you were looking at?
Well, I think more than anything, you could create this business with relatively speaking, fewer employees than you could a lot of the other options. And then I love the gross margins of this business as well. It's a very healthy margin business if you do it right. So, you put those two things together, lower labor cost or lower number of people, which should equate to lower labor cost, mixed with pretty high margins, and you can scale. You know, if you're doing the job correctly, you should be able to scale this pretty healthily. So that was it in a nutshell, mixed with what I already talked about as far as the applications and the creative side of it.
What type of experience did you have in the graphics, printing, creative side of things?
I would say close to zero. I had in my previous life, years and years ago, I'd worked for Xerox in their large format world, but that was all digital, more of the copier side of things. So really no experience, Steve, in this world.
Yeah, and I think that relates a lot to the folks on this call. I don't just looking at all the individuals, I don't think there is a heavy graphic design or just a creative background. Many of the folks are very similar to you, and they came from the corporate, they came through the corporate world. All right, talk to us a little bit about, all right, you signed the franchise agreement, you wrote your check, finding a location. But you know what? Let's take a step back. Everybody on this call, I think, is familiar with the Buddy Studio. So if you're on this call and you're looking to develop a brand new studio, there's going to be that time frame where you're looking for a location and you want to make money. And Rob, I know that you used a Buddy Studio in Georgia. So talk to us a little bit about that process. You're finding a site, you're trying to sell. Yeah, I don't want to answer that for you, so I'll let you tell that story.
Yeah, so like Steve says, if you end up doing this, you're going to want to come out of the gate, right, and try to start getting sales, and I mean, act like that you've got the capabilities to do this when you really don't, without sounding like you're lying to everybody. I mean, you've got to get out there and act like you've got the capabilities, and so that's kind of what I did. And I was lucky enough to actually got a fleet of vehicle wraps fairly quick before I had opened. And I sent all those graphics to the Georgia guys. They were able to just simply take the artwork that my customer had given me, and then their graphic designers helped me, and they were able to print it to me, send it to me, and then we installed it locally. So that's kind of the way it works. Now, obviously, they're going to try to give you wholesale pricing. You're not going to make the money on it that you would if you had your studio, but you're going to want that business, right? You're going to be doing a lot of what I call loss leader stuff anyway when you start. So you just want to start getting business so that then you start building on those referrals. So not to ramble too much, but the Buddy Studio helps a lot. And quite frankly, even after I started, there were certain capabilities I didn't have that I would send to Georgia and get done, and then they would ship product back to me or whatever. So that's the power of this in a lot of ways, is the other owners in general that you can lean on.
Yeah, I think it's an important attribute of SpeedPro is that the Buddy Studio allows you to learn the business before you're even really up and running. And learning the point of sale system, learning the different production equipment that other studios have the capabilities of. So it's really I'm a proponent of it. And again, anybody on this call, if you have any other questions about the Buddy Studio program, just let me know. All right, let's talk about a day in the life, Rob. So once you find your location, you're up and running. And I kind of want to tackle two aspects of it. The day in the life right now, or I'm sorry, day in the life when you started, and a day in the life maybe, over the last year. And just so how that's evolved for a lot of the, so the folks on the call can understand the evolution of what an owner does.
Wow, that's a loaded one. So I would say a day in the life early on was, trying to get the equipment in, everything running, trying to get the right people hired, retrofitting the studio that I had to do to make it to where I could bring vehicles in, and just a lot of that kind of stuff. And then trying to mix that with joining different networking groups, getting involved with chamber, getting involved, and starting to make, at that time, I mean, I was setting up a table. I would do anything it took just to get my name out there. Fast forward to now, I would love to tell you that I'm sitting here, everything's real organized, and I'm this power broker of an owner. And what has happened is we've grown so fast that, I mean, if I showed you my desk right now, it's absolutely crazy. And we are behind on projects. We've had some staffing challenges, but they're all good things in a way because they're growing pains. So I guess to summarize the day in the life, once you've been doing this for a few years, it starts getting extremely busy, but no day is the same either. I mean, I'll tell you, every day I'm coming in and looking at some different application, and that's what gets me up in the morning. So I hope that answers your question, Steve.
Yeah, Rob, that was great. So I want to tackle, though, how you're getting your customers. You mentioned a very important note that you're going to networking events, and everybody on the call, that should be something that you do, especially in the beginning, is go to networking events, and you can work with your SpeedPro team on which networking events you should attend and which ones you should not. But how are you getting your sales? How are you getting your customers, especially when you start out and then where you are now?
Yeah. So, when you start out, again, you've got to do some of the sales activities and the networking and all that to get to where your business is mostly referrals, which is where we are now. Candidly, I don't do a lot of cold calling or anything like that. I do not have a sales person on staff. So I pretty much handle all of the called quote sales activities. So early on, we were getting sales by me knocking on doors and networking and things like that. And now it's kind of like just the referrals, right? And then those referrals bring referrals. And it's, mix that with some of the PPC, social media stuff that we do. We get some business out of that. I would say that's been pretty good. But most of this, Steve, is a referral business. And you kind of look at, okay, last year we were at a certain revenue amount, and then, those referrals build, and then you grow because of that network of referrals.
So I want to talk real quick about competition or strategic partnerships. I mean, SpeedPro Direct comes into Birmingham, and there are no SpeedPros. Okay, there's some competitors in Birmingham. What did you do, or what's our competitive advantage versus, I know some competition in your area, right? And I mean, and they've been there for a while. How does SpeedPro compete with the competition?
I think that's probably some of that, candidly, is market dependent. But for me, I kind of looked at this as I didn't feel like a lot of the competition was outselling the applications. I don't know how many of you on the call have even looked at the equipment that you can bring in, but I came out of the gate with a flatbed, direct to substrate, and I knew other people had flatbeds in my marketplace, but I really used that as a differentiator. I think you'll find if you end up doing this, there's a lot of people that call them competition. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but a lot of people are just sitting behind their desk taking orders. There's not that many people out selling a lot of the applications. So we did two things. We sold direct to substrate printing, and we sold custom work, which is, it's going to bring you, larger margins. I mean, yeah, you'll still do banners and Coro signs and stuff like that early on, but you want to get to where you can do that custom work. Whether you're outsourcing that early on or you're not, you just need to be able to articulate the fact that you can do it.
And are you working with a lot of maybe local sign and graphic companies, printing companies, ad agencies?
As far as a wholesale type of market, not really. Not really. No, I mean, I did a little bit of that. And I do have some like promotional products people that are wholesalers.
Yep.
But I'm not doing a lot of real low margin wholesale business. I would say if it depends on your market, but if that kind of gets some business coming in, I would encourage people to do that. And I do some of it, but I've raised my margins on most of that since I started and try to do more, retail instead of wholesale.
Yeah, and I think it is market based as well. And but yeah, I mean, every market's different. Every owner is going to give you a different answer on that. So let's talk real quick about just learning this business. You had not a ton of experience in running a business like this. How long did it really take you until you really felt comfortable selling and talking to your customers?
Gosh, I don't think it took me that long feeling comfortable. I always felt comfortable that I could sell the products and the solutions. It was more about getting in front of people. And it's really been that way. If I could ever get in front of somebody, 9 times out of 10, I'm able to sell and differentiate what we do, and we usually get some business. So it's just it's access more than anything. And that's when some of these networking groups will help you, and the people that in the community and things like that. After a few years, obviously I'm able to go on surveys and be able to take that and do those surveys on my own and know what to look for and how to measure certain things. All that you learn how to do more of. But being comfortable, I always was comfortable in what we had access to here.
Got it. Talk to us about what a survey is, because when I think about what drives this business, being consistent with your surveys, I imagine if someone contacted 5 similar companies, not everybody's doing a survey, and that kind of separates us from the guy or gal down the street that potentially could be competition.
Sure. I'll give you some real live examples over the last 2 days. So yesterday I was out at a Live Nation concert venue getting ready for their concert series starting in April. So I was measuring all kind of stuff for food and beverage, measuring dividers where all the boxes are going to be, things like that. I was doing today. I was out in the rain measuring a bunch of fence work for somebody that wanted printed scrim banner going all around their venue. And tomorrow we're going to measure some walls that we're going to be looking to do some custom wallpaper on. So that's the kind of thing that you go out, and I firmly believe, and I'm sure Steve alluded to this, there's some owners that probably don't do surveys. I don't know. I prefer to go and do them if I can, because there's always upsell opportunities.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's your, doing a survey is your opportunity to meet them initially, provide them with a solution to whatever their challenge or need is. And then if you're there at the very end, I mean, then, you have another opportunity to provide consultative selling. And I totally agree, Rob. All right, I want to go back a little bit on staffing, because I think everybody on this call has asked me at least once or twice, what's staffing like in this industry? Because like a Chick-fil-A just opened up in my neighborhood where I live in Northeast Ohio, and they hired over 90 people before they even opened up their Chick-fil-A. And I don't, obviously I want you to tell the story here, Rob, but how many people are we hiring? You can tell your sales, you don't have to, of 2022, but I think people would like to understand how many people you have working for you after, 5 years.
Okay, so I think a lot of times on these calls, guys, like, and I did some of these, by the way. You think that, we're going to kind of, I don't know, skate the truth a little bit and embellish the challenges or the lack of the challenges. I've had some really challenging staffing issues. I went through a lot of graphic designers, believe it or not, and that's, again, I don't think if you polled the country, I don't think most people have had that many issues. It's just in my market, I went through a tremendous number. I've been through like 8 graphic designers, and if you want to talk offline, I mean, it's just kind of some interesting people in that line of work. And this wasn't ability. I think that we did a good job of vetting the ability. I just think that type of person couldn't handle the pressure very well. So anyway, I've had some challenges with installers as well. Other markets have all the installers that they need. I've struggled with that a little bit here. So yeah, it's just like every other industry in the grand scheme of things over the last year or two. Most everybody's had staffing issues. I've had staffing issues. We doubled our revenue. Let's see, from 21 to 22, and then had a substantial increase last year. And it was, for the most part last year, it was me, my production manager, and a graphic designer that would last 2 or 3 months, and then I'd move on to another one. So we did a lot with a little. Let's just put it that way. Now I have, just to bring it all full circle, I've got a production manager, assistant production manager, graphic designer, and a couple of outside installers and me. And we did, full disclosure, guys, I mean, I'm an open book. We did around 780,000 last year.
And how are you finding your staff? I did get a side question here. Is it through referrals? Are you using type of employment software program? What are you doing to find staff?
A little bit of everything. So I've done the Indeeds. My assistant production manager actually is the son of a friend of mine. Production manager came from Indeed. Always trying to get people that I know to be on the lookout for good people. So it's a mixture. And my graphic designer actually used a staffing company and paid a staffing company for that individual.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. I think if you initially use your sphere of influence and your network, a lot of times you will find an acquaintance, at least someone that you potentially could hire. But one advice I always got was never hire somebody you can't fire. Yeah. So I did get a question here. It's 3 parts. So Sean, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. So the first part was, how long did you continue the buddy system with the Georgia facility? So how long were you working with John?
Well, let's see. I guess from October till about May, right? So yeah, I mean, I wrote the check in October. I guess more realistically, probably January to May of 19.
Got it.
And I'll tell you this, it was a little more difficult finding a place than I thought it would be as well. And that again depends on your market. I thought that was going to be very easy. And that took me a little bit longer than I thought to find the right spot for me in Birmingham.
Got it. And all right, so Sean, if you do have any more follow-up questions with that, just let me know or let him know or let Rob know. When talking about, working capital, how many months did you feel like it took for you to hit break even? Where you felt like, all right, now I'm paying myself some money.
Well, I'll tell you what I planned for and what we did. I tried to be very conservative, and I believe the goal was like I think I was trying to go for 2 years break even. And I believe, Steve, I mean, don't hold me, I think we did it more like in 18 months.
Got it. And that was consistently hitting your break even.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we hit some months, right?
sure.
But yeah, I'd say consistently starting back then, my break even might have been somewhere around that 30,000 mark. So we were, starting to hit that pretty regularly.
And I think that's one of the realities that a lot of candidates eventually who become franchisees need to realize is that first year, even 2 years, you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have the months where you hit your break even. You're going to also have some months going, I don't know when I'm going to get my next job and my next project. And it happens. You just got to get through it. And, the last part of this is, and I usually wait to the end to talk about this, but I'm glad that you brought it up, Sean. Based on your experience, what are your thoughts about, the support and connectivity with the network of SpeedPro franchisees?
Well, I mean, I can't say enough good things about that. I mean, that's the reason that in my opinion, that's the main reason I pay my royalties, right? Is that I have access to the owners. There's a distribution list that we have called Ask the Owners. At any time, I can send something out there saying, have you seen this? What are you using for that? Have you ever had this issue? And somebody is always very responsive, sharing their experiences. So that is the power of the brand, in my opinion. There's a lot of other advantages, but we just got back from Vegas, and I think Steve would tell you the guys that are really knocking it dead, that's one of the first things they brag about is having the network of people. And these guys are doing, 3 million plus. So I think that says a lot.
All right. Thanks, Rob. And all right, so another question came in, and I'll answer this, and then you can maybe add on to it, Rob. But can we talk a little bit more about the skill set for the graphic designer and production manager? I'll answer that, and then again, Rob, you can add. What you're looking for is an individual that has Adobe Illustrator experience. And, but I will say there are a lot of people, if you're not in this industry, I know it seems odd, but there are a lot of people that want to have a career in the signs and graphic, large/wide format printing industry. And really the foundation or the start is having Adobe Illustrator experience. And then we can train them. When I say we, collectively, the owners, the staff, corporate office can train them on how to make the graphics and how to utilize the ripping software, how to apply vinyl or medias onto different substrates. And we have a ton of online training. We have a ton of online curriculum, but a lot of this is hands-on training. But most people have that foundation of Adobe Illustrator.
Yeah. So graphic designer, excuse me, Steve's spot on. Adobe Illustrator, it'd be nice if they had some large format design experience. You'll find a lot of the young people coming out of college in graphic design and in a graphic design major, they don't get exposed to large format. It's kind of interesting. So then you get into, do you think that they can, learn that large format? What's going to be the ramp up time? That'd be one type of person that you'd look at as coming out of college. The next one would be somebody that already has some experience in some sign graphics businesses. And then on the production manager side, you're going to have plenty of candidates. What you're going to have to really get into and probably get some second opinions from some other people is how set are they in their ways? Okay, my first production manager, he was good for me to get started with, but in retrospect, probably lost me a lot of productivity and money because, he wanted to check out at 5 every day and wanted to do things his way. And candidly, I didn't know enough to question, right, when he was telling me which way we should do things. So that's going to be a juggling act, but I think you'll have plenty of candidates. It's just, whittling that down.
Yeah, bigger markets, right? The more people you're going to be able to pull from. But Rob, it's funny. I remember putting someone in a system, and they were almost a seven-figure business, and they decided to let some of their seven-figure staff go because they wanted to be a $2 million, not just a $1. And they were like, you know what? I had a $1 million staff, and I wanted a $2 million staff, and so they had to make some changes, and and those are the juggling acts that you go through. And I think initially you want someone that's hungry, just like the owner. And finding someone that is young, right out of college, or under their parents' insurance, all great attributes for them, which saves you money, initially. All right, so I got two more questions, Rob, and then please, if you have a question, type it in, and I'll ask Rob. But so what would you have done differently if you could do this all over again?
I would not have paid cash for some of the equipment. I would have financed some of the equipment.
I like that answer. Okay.
Yeah, I would have financed some of that. Technology changes rapidly, and I guess I came out of the corporate world, no debt, and I should have financed some of the equipment. Let's see. Again, probably gotten some extra feedback, assistance, help in some of the hiring decisions that I made. And I would say that those are probably the main two things. Not too much I would do differently. I mean, we've learned a lot. We've made our share of mistakes, but, we've grown from those. I guess the staffing challenges, that's a tough one. I don't know if you can really change that. But yeah, so I think it's been quite a journey. I wouldn't change too much. I'm very proud of what we've done, and I like what we're doing. So yeah, I would say that's pretty much it, Steve.
All right, so I want to maybe take that what you just said and go into the next part. We asked earlier a little bit about hitting break even, and you mentioned that it took about 18 months where you were consistently hitting your break even. So has the SpeedPro franchise opportunity met or exceeded your financial expectations? So when you were signing that agreement, has it been what you expected, I guess? And again, I appreciate your honesty, Rob, and so does everybody else, because I think if the next convention that we have, they're gonna seek you out and say, you know what, Rob, you were a big reason why we did this, and I'm glad that you were honest with us.
Well, okay, so being very candid, your first 3 years, you're not gonna be rich your first 3 or 4 years. And if you are, then you're either doing something funky with your taxes, or I don't know. You've gotten lucky, but I didn't do this to make it rich. I did this to build an asset and something that I could sell down the road. So again, I'm an open book. I don't pay myself that much money. I keep this company very liquid so that I can invest in new equipment and people and keep growing the asset. So that's really me. I do think, and this might be another conversation. I think once you hit that you get that 500, that's kind of okay. But then you get that 750 and you're starting to go towards that million. That's when you start seeing the money flow. It's that top line. And if you've done a good job of increasing your margins along the way, that's a pretty healthy business. 750 to a million with good gross margins is pretty healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I always said in this industry, a 500,000 is really that turning point, and just because it's allowing you to reinvest back into the business. And it's reminding you of what, hey, I'm doing this because I do have an investment that I'm going to cash in on, hopefully, if and when it's said and done. All right. So the last question, and again, I just want to remind everybody, if you want to ask any questions, just type them in. Are there any points that you think a candidate on this call should consider that maybe we haven't discussed today?
No, I think that we've discussed it. And again, feel free, to call me at any time. I think I've spoken to a couple of the guys on this call, if I'm not mistaken. I'll just tell you, you just got to be careful not to come out of the gate trying to pay yourself too much money and getting cocky on how much equipment you're buying and all that. You've got to realize it's going to take a little while, and you just got to be smart about how you spend your money. And I've known owners that have come out of the gate trying to pay themselves way too much money, and that's not a good model for success. So I would just say when you do your goals, and you be conservative, look at a 3-year plan when it's probably a 2-year, and that kind of stuff. And I think you'll beat those projections, right? And then I think you'll be a lot happier.
I totally agree, Rob. And I think for most folks, buying a business like this is like buying your first home. You got to get your personal things in order, plus a bank's not going to lend you money if you're not in a position to do it. So I do think it's very similar, when you think about buying a house for the first time or buying a business for the first time. I only bring that up because I think it's relatable for everybody. All right,
I'll
last
say
question
this
then.
in jest real quick to everybody. I think
Yeah.
I make this joke when I'm doing presentations, that this in some ways was a lot easier when I wasn't making any money compared to now that we are, because I expected not to be making any money, right? So now that we're making money, then you're like, oh gosh, we got to keep doing this and making more. So
All
it's
right,
all part of the journey.
Rob, last question, I promise. Talk to us a little bit about the corporate support that you got maybe initially, the ongoing support, and then, but again, I always want to go back to the support of the network. But talk a little bit about the corporate support.
Yeah, I mean, it's second to none. I mean, you've got all the marketing support that you could need, a lot. Some of the stuff I'm still not using, and I should be, just and I'm not, just because I haven't had time to sit down and focus on it. But there's plenty of things that at your disposal that other competitors, so to speak, would not have without the support of kind of our franchise model. So corporate's been great to me. I don't have any complaints. And again, I think that is what helps me justify paying those royalties. If I didn't have the support of corporate, I didn't have all the owners, then right, why would I do this? So
right, why would you write that check every month
right.
for the royalties? All right, Rob, that concludes our validation group call. I really, really appreciate your time. We've got people from all over the country here with us. So California, Illinois, Texas. There's Jerry Bird from Alabama. So we got people from all over the country, which again, appreciate everybody's time. If you have any questions that maybe didn't get answered, please direct them to me. I can always direct them to Rob, but I'll follow up with everybody after this. But Rob, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. Long time no see after seeing you for a few days in Las Vegas. And
Yep.
and anyways, we'll look forward to our next conversation, Rob.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Good luck.